Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Set to go down next month on September 16th on the undercard of Zepeda versus Hesta. Three-division current reigning unified minimum weight champion Yokasta Valle of Costa Rica will be taking on seasoned veteran Maria Santizo.
This is actually a good card if you're familiar with the fighters. It's not a high-profile fight. These fights, they're not high-profile fights.
William Zepeda versus Marcito Hesta, Yokasta Valle versus Maria Santizo. Those are not high-profile fights, but in a matchmaking sense, they are fun fights. They are fun fights to watch. When it comes to Yokasta Valle versus Maria Santizo, they're both mid-range to inside fighters, combination punchers.
Yokasta is.
Maria Santizo's no pure boxer. She's no outside fighter, outside jabber, stick and mover.
They didn't land on Maria by accident. Maria Santizo would serve as a common opponent between Yokasta Valle and Senicia Estrada.
Got more than one common opponent. It's not just Maria. Tina Ruprecht of Germany, who gave Yokasta Valle a decision loss many years ago, many years later, shared the ring with Senicia and lost a lopsided decision.
Maria's just the latest common opponent between them, the ongoing rivalry between the only two champions in the women's minimum weight division.
They didn't land on Maria by accident. Maria, who sports a professional record of 11 wins with 3 losses, no draws, 6 knockouts, having been knocked out at least once, just once, in 14 professional bouts.
Senicia is the one who knocked her out.
Well over a year ago, what I believe was Senicia's final fight under the Golden Boy Promotions banner. Highlight reel knockdowns and what was a highlight reel knockout before she decided to leave Golden Boy for Top Rank.
She knocked out Maria.
Maria Santizo, who going into that fight with Senicia well over a year ago, close to 2, she was an unbeaten fighter at that time. She's 3 for 3 in her last 6 now.
Won 3 fights, lost 3 fights.
Got knocked out by Senicia Estrada, then rebounded off that loss with Maria Garcia, then got decisioned by former champion Anabel Ortiz and won a decision over Arlen Aguirre.
Then lost the decision to unbeaten Gabriela Fundora, who's supposed to be challenging for the IBF title 2 divisions north of minimum weight.
Maria's coming off a loss ahead of this Yokasta Valle fight. Yokasta Valle, the reigning unified champion at minimum weight, one of 2 who had a very busy year last year. She fought 4 times.
Looks like she took her foot off the gas a bit this year. She's only fought once this year. This will be her 2nd fight.
And depending on how it goes, there is still enough room to schedule a third, a lighter touch, a takeover fight before this year is out.
Stated, they didn't land on Maria Santizo by accident. This is a common opponent between Yokasta and Senicia.
You often hear it said in the sport of boxing that triangle theories don't work. Just because Senicia Estrada knocked out Maria Santizo, it doesn't mean that Yokasta's going to go in there and duplicate her performance. Styles make fights. That's the way it is.
That's what they say.
And triangle theories don't work, but whenever 2 fighters share a common opponent, irrespective of triangle theories not working, it still gives rise to who did it better comparisons, who did it better conversations.
It does.
No, triangle theories don't work. Yokasta Valle sports a professional record of 28 wins with 2 losses, no draws, 9 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 30 professional contests.
She's not the puncher that Senicia Estrada is, you understand. She's got 30 fights and only 9 knockouts.
She's not the puncher that Senicia is. In fact, her and Senicia, in terms of implementation, they don't have much in common.
So it's safe to say that Senicia is a bigger puncher, a much bigger puncher than Yokasta Valle. She was able to stop Maria Santizo, then unbeaten Maria Santizo in just 4 rounds.
I don't think Yokasta Valle is going to duplicate that performance. I don't think Yokasta is about to stop Maria Santizo in 4. I think she can win the fight. I think she can outwork Maria Santizo, but I don't think she can knock her out.
Not in 4 rounds anyway, not like Senicia did.
Senicia, who is set for hand surgery next month on the 12th, following that Leonela Paola Judica fight, would prove to be a more difficult fight.
Was a more difficult fight than I thought it would be. Apparently, Senicia Estrada, she had an injured knuckle in that fight.
The right index finger. She will be undergoing surgery for that next month on the 12th, and based on that, you can make the inference that Senicia Estrada, she won't be returning for what remains of this year. She might not. Not if she's getting her hand operated on next month.
Ruling out an Estrada versus Valle showdown.
Beyond this upcoming Maria Santizo fight that same month.
If it goes down, it won't be this year.
That's the look of it for now. Keep your eyes peeled for Valle versus Santizo on the undercard of Zepeda versus Hesta, and we'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. In men's lightweight news, per a tweet from Michael Benson, Gervonta Davis has dismissed the possibility of moving up to fight Terence Crawford. Nah, it was just some talking on some Twitter back and forth. I was joking around, but you know how people are. I'm the face of boxing, so they make a big deal out of it.
Face of boxing, he's not even on a Forbes list.
Need I remind you that there were only two boxers, only two pugilists listed in the current Forbes list that features the top earning athletes in several sports. Gervonta Davis was not one among them. It was between Canelo Alvarez and Anthony Joshua. So how could Gervonta be the face of boxing if he's not even the top earning boxer?
It's because he's not the face of boxing, he's the face of degeneracy.
If he is the face of anything, still riding high off his win over Ryan Garcia and how that pay-per-view performed at the box office, now rumored to be facing Isaac Cruz for a second time. I can guarantee you that Isaac Cruz fight ain't gonna do what the Ryan Garcia fight did. In fact, Canelo Alvarez and Gervonta Davis both have box office fights coming up, and I'd wager that Canelo's fight with Jermell is going to sell more than Gervonta's fight with Isaac.
Of course.
If anybody's the face of boxing, it's Canelo Alvarez, because the face of boxing and what it means to be the face of boxing is drumming up the most business and the most attention for the sport, appealing to the biggest audience, and that's not Gervonta Davis based on one fight with Ryan Garcia.
Gervonta only appeals to bums.
Losers. Take Ryan Garcia out of the equation, and Gervonta Davis don't do 1 million or over 1 million buys, and the same applies to Ryan, make no mistake, but nobody's calling Ryan the face of boxing.
Like Gervonta's calling himself that.
Boxing insider Rick Glacier caught wind of the news, caught wind of the rumors that Gervonta would be facing Isaac for a second time, and he said, from all indications, the Tank Davis versus Isaac Cruz rematch will happen this fall, and it'll definitely flop again on pay-per-view, just like it flopped the first time. Not only is Tank now way past a Pitbull Cruz, but there's zero public demand for that fight. Tank should be fighting the elite lightweights, not the journeyman lightweights. Good luck to the financial backers of this fight, hashtag Paramount Global, Showtime, and PBC, because they're gonna need it.
If that fight is gonna highlight anything, it's how much Gervonta isn't the face of boxing and how much drawing power he doesn't have. How much Ryan Garcia played an integral role in that box office fight's performance.
Not saying that Ryan Garcia can get out there and do numbers like that on his own. That's not saying that Ryan Garcia is the face of boxing. That's saying that without Ryan,
Gervonta don't do numbers like that. We've got the receipts. He was on pay-per-view 5 times before he fought Ryan, and he never came close to doing numbers like that. He won't do them with Isaac Cruz.
well, I was hoping he was going to fight Terence Crawford. I was hoping he was going to dare to be great.
Nothing great about Gervonta Davis.
So, we're not going to get the Terence Crawford versus Gervonta Davis fight, but we might get Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez.
Per reports.
Canelo Alvarez is now confirmed that he is open to a potential fight with Terence Crawford. After Crawford said he'd be willing to move up to super middleweight 168, Canelo said, you never know in boxing. It's possible. Why not? If it makes sense, I'm down to do it.
I told you before, it's not as far-fetched an idea as people are making it out to be. It harkens back to the Sugar Ray Leonard versus Harvin Magler fight many years ago.
Terence is no ordinary welterweight moving up in weight, moving up 2-3 weight classes for a Canelo Alvarez fight. He isn't. He's no ordinary welterweight, no ordinary fighter. Who you're talking about is the consensus number 1 pound-for-pound fighter, mostly number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport.
Can he do it?
I saw a recent interview with Brian McIntyre where Brian feels that Terence Crawford can pick Canelo Alvarez apart. How would he mean to do it? Well, no matter what, Terence is a more fleet-of-foot fighter than Canelo Alvarez. Lighter on his feet and moves around the ring a lot more than Canelo does.
Many would say that Canelo Alvarez's heel, at least one of his Achilles heels, is movement on the part of the other fighter, and Terence is no ordinary fighter.
Because Terence is naturally smaller, albeit some years older, he may be faster than Canelo, perhaps a little sharper because he's a smaller fighter moving up in weight, with the caveat being that Terence will weigh more than he's ever weighed for a fight, so that could slow him down.
A bit.
Though he may still have a speed advantage over Canelo. Not a strength advantage, though, and not a durability advantage. I think that Canelo has one of the best chins in the sport of boxing, and he will be the stronger puncher of the two, even if he's not faster.
I think that's what Brian McIntyre means when he says that Terence would pick him apart. Peck away at him for from the outside because Terence isn't fighting a guy who's all that much taller or all that much longer than he is.
Canelo is a sturdy fighter, a short, stumpy, sturdy fighter who's very strong and very durable, but he doesn't have much of a height advantage or a reach advantage of any at all over Terence Crawford. They would be mostly eye level to each other.
Which opens the door for the fight to be competitive so long as Terence can stay on the balls of his feet, moving around, staying on the outside, and pecking away at an oncoming Canelo Alvarez. But Canelo, he's no ordinary fighter either.
His head movement, upper body movement, shot selection, catch and counter hooks, and quickness.
Because he's got some of his own.
I'm telling you, it's not as far-fetched an idea as people make it out to be, and it harkens back to the Sugar Ray Leonard versus Harvin Magler fight many, many years ago, with the difference being that Terence isn't coming off a 3-year layoff.
Like Sugar Ray Leonard was before he fought Marvin.
Now, Sugar moved up from welter up to middle, whereas Terence would be moving up from welter up to super middle. So his leap is a broader leap of faith than Sugar's was, though all the same, it's not as far-fetched as it seems.
It could happen.
Some speculated that should Canelo take care of business with Jermell, he might move on to his brother, Jermall, though at this time, I know of no fight date, tentative or otherwise, for Jermall Charlo that would see him returning before this year is out. And I hardly think he'd fight somebody like Canelo off of 2.5 going on 3 years of inactivity.
Now, there was a video of Jermall hitting the mitts, doing the rounds earlier this week, but
that doesn't really mean much without a fight date, tentative or otherwise.
So, maybe Canelo ends up fighting Terence.
Now, Tszyu says that he plans to be in attendance at the Canelo versus Charlo fight, and he's not worried about a confrontation with Charlo.
Why would he be? Jermel's gonna be busy with Canelo, and Jermal's no threat to him. He just got the taste slapped out of his mouth by Caleb Plant.
Tszyu will be training for a few weeks in Las Vegas to prepare for his scheduled fight with Brian Mendoza on October 15th in Australia. Glenn Jennings, who manages Tszyu, would like to have his fighter presented with the full WBO title on the same night as Canelo versus Charlo. How good would that be if I got the belt that night? And definitely funny. I could walk around that entire venue in Las Vegas saying, I'm the WBO champion now. You're no longer fucking undisputed. Tszyu told Fox Sports Australia. Tszyu is not worried about a potential altercation with Charlo and his team on fight night.
No, they're gonna have their hands full with Canelo.
Some really good fighters right there at 154 pounds. Though in the absence of Jermell Charlo, who I identified as the biggest threat to Tszyu and what he could be.
World's his oyster.
Not saying that he's the only talented fighter, talented unbeaten up-and-comer in the junior middleweight division. There are outliers like Sissoko and Conwell, guys who are really good fighters but don't get talked about that much. There's Xander Zayas on the top-ranked side of things.
He's a really good fighter.
What separates Tim from all of them is that they are not the marquee attractions in their regions of the world that he is in his. Because I'm no thug. I wasn't brought up that way. I just want to put on cracking fights. Simple. I'm not disrespectful to anybody, Tszyu said. Don't want to fight anybody outside of the boxing ring either. Never have. That's why I don't need a bigger entourage. I just see them as a bunch of hyenas. Hyenas in packs. But I don't need that. I'm fine by myself. I'm a wolf. Tszyu stands firm that the WBO made the right call by removing Charlo from his belt. You can't just keep pulling out of fights like that. There has to be justice, and now it just makes things more interesting because if he wants to become the division's undisputed champion again, he's got to fight me.
I think he's done at 154.
I think whether he wins or loses against Canelo Alvarez, Jermell Charlo's days at junior middleweight are over. Tszyu says that fight, it's inevitable, but to be honest, what I really want is the winner of Canelo versus Charlo.
No, I don't think he's going to get the winner or the loser.
If Canelo Alvarez beats Jermell Charlo, the way I think he's going to beat Jermell Charlo, Tszyu is not on Canelo's radar.
There are enough guys fighting for a spot on that line.
And with Tim on the eve of becoming a world champion for the first time in his career, I don't think his reign is going to come to an abrupt end by moving up in weight prematurely for a fight he probably doesn't get anyway. That's when it comes to Canelo. When it comes to Jermell will have made a career high purse, win or lose, with Canelo Alvarez. In a scenario where he loses, I don't think he's going to be in any rush to come back to the squared circle. I don't think he's going to be in any rush to boil all the way back down to 154 for fights that pay less than the one he just had.
No way.
Tszyu versus Charlo does not seem realistic to me. Now, Tszyu versus Crawford.
That could happen.
Tszyu welcomes a Terence Crawford fight and admits he's very hard to beat.
We have heard Tszyu address the possibility of facing Terence Crawford if he moves up the junior middle, though I haven't heard Terence himself address that possibility, address that fight.
I'd welcome that fight with both hands, said an amped up Tszyu to Fight Hub TV. I'm not scared of no one. While a matchup against Crawford makes sense, Tszyu is still hoping to land a showdown against Charlo.
Telling you, I don't think he's gonna get him.
Well, Crawford versus Canelo is not far-fetched, at least not to me. Crawford versus Tszyu is also a distinct possibility because that's a rather broad leap.
147 and 168?
147 to 154 is a lot more manageable, a lot more realistic, though I reiterate, I've yet to hear Terence Crawford address the possibility of facing Tszyu. As a WBO super champion, he can use that designation to move up in weight and become Tim's mandatory straight away, to challenge him for his newly obtained WBO title, provided that he retains it in the upcoming Brian Mendoza fight.
I think he will.
Maybe fighting Tszyu for that WBO title doesn't get Terence's juices going like potentially fighting Canelo. The thrill of facing someone of that caliber, the face of boxing in this country.
And the financial incentive that comes with it.
Sure that the Terence Crawford, the more appealing and attractive fight would be a Canelo fight over a Tszyu fight, but a Tszyu fight, it is right there. It's right around the corner. It's an easy fight to make when you think about it.
The size and strength and freshness of Tszyu versus the experience and skill of Terence Crawford.
The old lion versus the young lion in what would be a high-profile fight in more regions than one here in America and in Australia. It can be done. The opportunity for Terence to become a 4-division champion, or the opportunity for Tim to collect a pound-for-pound scalp.
I wonder how Terence feels about it.
At 36 years old, having already been a champion at 3 weights, he wants to maximize his earnings. I don't blame him.
But I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Tim either.